All right, everyone. Hey, it is my great pleasure. And I know you guys say this. I say this about every other athlete, but really, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Jeff with us here today. I met Jeff officially in December at the U.S. Open when I was with one of my athletes, with Kevin Jackson, and I saw him there, and I just told myself I'm going to go introduce myself, and he was just sitting there, and I'm like, hey, like I used to be a swimmer too. I don't know if you know me, Miller at Kavik. They used to know me as Mike Kavik. He's like, I remember you. So it's cool to have you here for a lot of reasons, Jeff. I must admit that growing up. There were a couple of African American swimmers at the pool, and you were one of them. I had the great privilege of swimming and training with Byron Davis. When I was growing up, you ended up going to University of Texas, and I was like, when I want to go to UT too, and it was you and Lefty Crawford out there. So, anyways, everyone, for those of you that don't know who this gentleman is, he's there's so many great facets about Jeff, but you heard a little bit about about how I know Jeff. But for those of you that don't know, Jeff started a couple years earlier than myself. When I mean a couple years earlier, it was about 10. But for someone like Jeff, Jeff is one of the pioneering, if I can say that, minorities to swimming in the United States. I know that sounds a little weird today since we're so diverse in swimming nowadays, but there was a time when that wasn't the case, and Jeff was the first African American to win a medal for the United States at the Pan American Games, which is a really, really big deal, and that was in 1991 in Cuba. And I'm not even sure if there was free travel between the U.S. and Cuba back then. Was it?
No.
So just being and having that rare honor and opportunity to go to Cuba, back then, that's just very, very cool. Jeff, thank you for being here. The idea of this talk and others who have been here earlier is just to kind of, to introduce and to relate my swimmers and swimmers watching today, just to relate them to the people that have been there, done that, and who again were just like us, or just like these swimmers once upon a time. Again, thank you for being here, and what we all just kind of want to hear is a little bit about your story, how you got started. Would you just kind of mind walking us through that?
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. It's kind of the best place to start is at the beginning. Before I do that, I just want to say that I've spent my whole adult life as a journalist. I graduated with a journalism degree from the University of Texas, and I had the pleasure of I interviewed President Bush, the second one. I've interviewed a lot of local politicians, mayors, and governors. And when I started working at Swimming World in 2008, I had the very good privilege of being able to interview people who I looked up to. And I never got to interview you personally, Milo, but I have always been in awe of the things you've been able to do in this sport. So to be able to talk to you is a privilege to me, because I still to this day get starstruck when I'm talking to one of the fastest swimmers in history. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
One of the things that I love talking about when I talk about starting swimming is to talk about my first swim meet. I don't remember the meet, but I remember the result. And I was 6 years old, and I was swimming at the Herbert Hoover Boys Club in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was a meet in my home pool. So, it was a pool I knew well. It was a little 6-lane pool. And I was 6 years old, ready to swim the 25 butterfly. And I was from what people have told me is I didn't know what was going on. All I was told was step up on the blocks, and when the gun went off, swim butterfly to the other end. And I swam with all my might, touched the wall, and thought that was it. okay, I did what I was told. And then at the end of that, my mother came up to me and handed me this little trophy. I mean, it couldn't have been more than just that big, because I got sixth place. And I guess that basically meant that everybody got a trophy who swam in that race. And it kind of sparked something in me. And it's like, oh my gosh, all I did was swim a 25 butterfly and I get something for it. And so that made me want to do more. And I guess that was my official beginning as a competitive swimmer. And I feel a little embarrassed to say that I grew out of butterfly. I didn't become a butterflyer. I was quickly becoming a breaststroker. By the age of 10, I really was not becoming good at butterfly. It was breaststroke that was my stroke. And my coaches saw that very quickly. But I was very blessed to have coaches when I was younger that really stressed the importance of being a well-rounded swimmer. I never, ever, ever said, I'm a breaststroker, I don't want to do any other stroke. I like doing all the other strokes. And that continues to this day. There'll be some of you out there who will, like, jaws will drop on the floor when you hear this, but I've been swimming for 40 years now. And I always want to be a well-rounded swimmer. I'm a master swimmer now. I can do anything I want. I can just stick to breaststroke, but I love doing all the strokes. I love doing IM. I love doing it because it's kind of like, if you gotta watch gymnastics, everybody like oohs and ahs at the person who wins the all around at the Olympics, and I kind of feel that the IM is kind of that. So I kind of want to showcase that I'm a good, well-rounded, all-around swimmer. And even though my breaststroke improved, it got better and better and better every year. I started winning we didn't have like a state championship because Missouri was divided between Kansas City and St. Louis. And so all the St. Louis area and Illinois teams swam against each other. Kansas City just stayed in its own little area. But I was winning all of our regional championships when I was 11 years old. I was 12 years old. I got the chance to go to regionals, which was in Indianapolis at the great IUPUI pool, and just blew my mind. And I'm this little 12-year-old kid in this huge pool. It just was like, what am I doing here? This pool is bigger than like my school. And got there, and I remember swimming a 50 breaststroke in the finals of the regionals, and I got second place, and it was like a big deal. But the best thing about it was, and this is something some of the, like Milo may know this, and some of the adults are on here now. Swimming World Magazine used to publish in their magazine a list of the top 10 swimmers in your age group at the end of each season. So I remember it was probably that fall. I got the magazine, and I'm flipping through it, going all the way to the back, and they have the results of the top 16. It was top 16. The top 16 swimmers in your age group in each event. And I was scanning down the list to see where I stacked up because my coach, everybody said, you're going to be one of the top swimmers in the nation with that 50 breaststroke. And I looked, and there I was in third place in the nation. And I was like, what in the world is this? I just swam my little 50 breaststroke, and that was the third fastest swim of any 11, 12-year-old in the whole country. Oh my gosh, this is kind of weird. Because I always just kind of swam in my own little bubble of swimming against people in St. Louis. And then when I went to Indiana, I was swimming against those people from those surrounding states. And then all of a sudden, my eyes got opened up to this whole world of other swimmers out there in the country. And from then on, I just wanted to get my name in Swimming World Magazine. I wanted to get in that top 16 list. And every year, that would be the first thing I did. I knew when that edition was coming out, and as soon as it came in the mailbox, I'd flip right to the end, and I'd see my name, and I'd be all excited because that was my goal, to get my name in Swimming World Magazine. So it was a great thrill many, many, many years later to be able to work for Swimming World Magazine. But here's the odd thing that I think a lot of you may find a little bit strange. The first two swim teams I swam for, from age 5 until 13, both of those swim teams were all black swim teams. Everybody on that swim team was black. No white people. It wasn't that I don't think there was a rule that you couldn't swim on the team if you were white or any other race. That's just the way it was. And we had a black coach. So I never grew up thinking this is not a sport for black people, because that's the way it was.
Yeah.
I took swim lessons with other black kids. I was on swim team, and we were all black kids just swimming up and down the pool, just doing what we do. And when I went to swim meets, I knew that, yeah, maybe there weren't a lot of Black kids outside of our team, but I didn't think, oh gosh, we're probably the weird ones here. We just got up and we just did our thing. We raced and got our medals and our trophies and got best times. And, we did the same thing that the white kids did. We would swim our races and we'd go back to the bullpen and we'd hang out with our friends and then we'd go out and swim another race and then we'd go home and the next day do it again. So I never thought anything was out of the ordinary with me when I was younger. It wasn't really until probably, I'd say I was 16 when I went to my first nationals, and it was 100 breaststroke, and I was really excited about going to nationals. And I actually was walking on deck, and this big, muscular Black guy just walked right by me and said, "Hey, good to see you." I had no idea who he was, never seen him before in my life, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of interesting." It wasn't Sabir Muhammad, it was Byron Davis.
Oh, Byron Davis, that's right.
Yeah, so Byron was the first person of any significance that was Black that I saw outside of my own little circle. And so, like I said, I never thought anything was out of the ordinary with me even being at nationals, but to see somebody else there who looked just like me made me feel a little bit better. And I guess I started then, it kind of opened my eyes. I started to really look around the deck and was like, yeah, this is a very white pool deck. And it wasn't that it made me mad or made me feel weird or made me feel like I didn't belong. It was just something I noted. And I didn't use it as fuel of saying, well, if I'm one of the only 2 or 3 Black people here, I'm going to swim my little guts out. And so people would look at me and say, that little Black kid could do something. I just went out there and just swam. It was just something I noted. I didn't make anything of it. I didn't put it on myself to say, well, I guess I have a job to do to show the world that Black kids can swim. I had heard all the stuff that, Black people sink like a rock and Black people don't like swimming because of their hair. And I didn't care what people said. I didn't let that affect me. And I'll tell you, I sink like a rock. You put me in a pool, if I don't do anything, I'll go to the bottom. But that doesn't bother me. I swim and I'll swim my strokes so I can get to the other pool, down and back as fast as I can. And that meet really kind of, like I said, opened my eyes to being a Black swimmer at the highest level in the United States. And I really did notice that there were a very small number of Black people in swimming. But again, I didn't let it get by me. And actually, I'll jump back a couple months from that meet. I made my first national junior team, and I was just a couple of weeks from turning 16. And also on that team were 2 other girls who were Black. And, we didn't huddle together and say, we've got to bond together and, it's us or them. We were just there just to swim just like everybody else. And I know it seems weird in this day and age to kind of to think that there was a time when minority swimmers may have seemed weird on deck, but I guess that's really what it was. I'll tell you, after that nationals, when I was 16, I qualified for a meet that was called the Olympic Festival. It doesn't exist anymore. It was basically kind of like the Olympics every year in the United States. They'd have, usually in all these sports, they bring the best in the country together and they'd have Olympic style events. Well, in swimming, it was very different. They only invited swimmers who were 18 years and younger. And it was kind of like the draft. You'd have 4 teams and the coaches would try to draft and get the best swimmers for their team. And I got to go to this meet and I won the 100 breaststroke. And I was really excited because I'd almost got my best time and I was unshaved, unrested. And it made me think I was going to do really well at nationals that summer. But it was the first time I actually had to sit in a room. And Mia will know all about this. You sit in a room in front of the press and, it's like 30 people and they all want to ask you questions. And I didn't know what was going on. They just said, okay, you've won this race, here you go, and go warm down, and then 10 minutes later, we're going to bring you into this room and ask questions. And I sat in this room, and the first question that was asked to me is like, what does it feel like to be the first Black swimmer to win a gold medal at the Olympic Festival? Now, the Olympic Festival had been around for about 20 years, a little less than that. So it had been around, but I didn't really follow it that much at that point, because I really, like I said, my swimming was just in this little local bubble. And so the question kind of took me back. It was like, I'm the first one? And, I thought on my feet and I said, well, it doesn't feel any different. I don't, I'm honored. I'm really blessed to be able to be here. But that kind of took me back a little bit. It was like, was I the first to do something? There had to have been other people. It just kind of made me think that, why aren't there more people out there winning gold medals at the Olympic Festival? And that summer, I saw Byron Davis again at Nationals, and I had the courage to just stop and just talk to him for a little bit. And I said, how long have you been going to Nationals? And he said this was like his second or third year. And I just asked him bluntly, I said, how many other Black swimmers are there? And he said, oh, counting the two of us, probably 3 others. And I said, have there been any others? Have there been any Black swimmers that have gone to the Olympics? And he said, no. And I said, are there any Black swimmers that have won national titles? And he said, no. And in my mind, I didn't say, well, that has to change. It was just like, well, that's very interesting. And I never continued in the sport ever letting that bother me. And it was only the perception, that people were, I'm the best hope to be the first African American to make the Olympic team at the time, or I'm the one that's going to have to bring up the African American swimming experience, and that was a little hard. But it's hard, but you just can't let it get to you.
Jeff, I listened to you, and again, a lot of our young listeners, for them, it's kind of strange because, our club, I would say that white Americans are the minority in our club, and it just kind of goes to show that, we are a very, very incredibly diverse club, and I do take a lot of pride in that. And those that are young today, they're probably listening to you, and they can't see it. There was a time when it wasn't so diverse, and it took people like yourself, it was Tiger Woods in golf. There were key people in every single sport that kind of opened that I don't want to call it floodgates, but that showed other athletes of different races that hey, we do have people representing us in every single sport, and not only are they representing us, but they're kicking some butt. So whether you want to admit it or not, you did encourage generations of athletes after yourself, and that is something to be proud of. Let's kind of roll it back. Let's talk about your club days, Jeff. What is it about swimming that you loved? Like, what kept you in the game? And when it was hard, what was it about the sport and the game that kind of kept you in?
Well, the thing that really kept me going and keeps me going is the race, just racing. I love racing. Are you an adrenaline? I'm yes and no, but I keep it focused in swimming. I don't go out and jump out of planes or go race stock cars. But I just love the feeling of standing next to somebody on the blocks and basically in my mind telepathically telling them, let's go, let's race. And like I said, that first race I did 25 fly, and I get this little trophy. I guess I just hungered for all of that, and I really enjoyed it. I will not lie to you. I do not like working out. I never ever liked going to swim practice. Well, there were some days I did. I mean, I liked hanging out with my friends, but the 2 hours of just swimming back and forth and pushing yourself, and you don't think you could take another stroke, and your coach says you got 2 more 50s to do. That was hard for me because it's, you're going to swim practice more than you're going to a meet. And when you look at the calendar and you're thinking, oh, there's not going to meet for 3 weeks, and oh, I got all this swim practice, and oh my gosh, it's so much work. All I kept thinking was, when's the next meet? When's the next meet? And then when it got closer, I would get more excited. I wouldn't think, okay, I'm going to work harder because I have these goals for this meet, but I just always loved stepping up on the blocks and racing. And even when I may not have been physically at my best, I still mentally wanted to race and do the best I could. Something we used to always do from age 6 with my first coach to age 17 with my before I went off to college was doing dives off the blocks. We used to do those all the time at the end of swim practice, whether 25s or 50s, when you do them when you're not at your best. And in some ways that really helped me because, you know, that's when you're a sprinter, that's kind of the most important part of a race. And if you don't have a good start, you're kind of behind the game anyway. So we always had good starts. Everybody on our team, we always prided ourselves on our starts. But I never really would walk into the pool every day and say, okay, coach, what do you got for me? I could never do that. I was never that type of person. Even when I went to college, I was never that type of person who said, okay, I'm gonna lead the lane. I will admit to you, I rarely led the breaststroke lane when I was in Texas because I didn't like that pressure of leading the lane and setting the pace. And yeah, sometimes I would be forced to, and it wasn't every day that I said, okay, I'll go last. But, you know, I never liked that pressure of leading the lane because, you know, some guys on the team in my lane in the breaststroke group I swam with, they were phenomenal trainers. I mean, they could almost do their best times in swim practice. And I was, you know, we timed 100 breaststroke in swim practice. I was usually 5 seconds slower. And these guys were almost right on their times every time. And it just kind of made me feel like, am I doing something wrong here? But then we go to meet and, you know, I would crush them and it made me feel a little bit better. But it was just always so much fun to get up and race, even when you're not feeling at your best. I loved hanging out with my friends. I made a lot of friends in high school with my team and in college. And those are some of the memories that I really, really enjoy. But on the flip side of that, I mean, if you don't have fun, then if you don't have fun, even in swim practice, it'll translate to a meet. You'll go to a swim meet and you'll just be like, well, let's just kind of get this over with. Or you'll be like, I don't think I'm ready because you're just not mentally there. And I'm just going to tell you, the worst swimming meet I ever had in my life was due to that. I just was not having fun. I just was kind of just tunnel vision, just getting in the pool every day, doing the work. And all of a sudden the meet was there, was the 1992 Olympic trials. I was seated fourth in the 100 breaststroke. And all I wanted to do was, I didn't really have a goal of making the Olympic team because I didn't want to put that pressure on myself. All I wanted to do was just go out there and do the best I could. But the problem was that I was a freshman in college at the time, and I was just swimming so hard and just focused on the present that by the time the meet got there, or by the time taper started, I was like, oh my gosh, the meet's coming up. And I wasn't ready mentally. I may have been ready physically, but if you're not ready mentally, you're not going to get the goals that you set out to set for yourself. So I got up on the blocks for prelims with 100 breaststroke. Take a little step back. So the order of events in the Olympic trials back then is a little bit different than it is now. So the women's 100 freestyle was the first event. And there's a woman named Jenny Thompson. If you look her up, you'll see she's phenomenal.
She's a big deal.
She set a world record in the 100 freestyle in prelims. I was shocked. I mean, everybody was going crazy, and I'm looking, oh my gosh, people are setting world records at this meet in prelims. I can't, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do that. If that's what I have to do to make the Olympic team and to like even just make finals or be top 3, I don't know if I can handle it. And I wasn't hyperventilating, but I think I started having a little mini panic attack. And this was like 15, 20 minutes before I was about to swim. And so I stood on the blocks, and Eddie Reese, who was my coach at Texas, was down like the 25-meter mark. So he was good 75 feet away. And he could see me literally shaking. I was shaking. I was so nervous about the fact that Jenny just set this world record. Is that what this meet is really all about? What if, oh my gosh, what if I swim really well? Does that mean I'll make the Olympic team? Oh my gosh, what does that mean? If I don't swim really well, what's going to happen? Are my teammates going to hate me? Well, I swam horribly, swam like a second and a half slower than my best time. Didn't make finals, and I was crushed. Because I just assumed I would make finals, even if I just had an off swim. And I qualified 10th, and this was before semifinals. They didn't have semifinals, so I didn't get another chance to try to get top 8. And so I was sitting in the warm down pool, and I just couldn't move. I just didn't know what to do with myself. And it was just, I looked back and I said, I don't even remember training for this. I don't even remember the past 6 months, because I just kind of just was putting my head down, and I didn't enjoy the process. And when you enjoy the process, as I can attest to lately, when you enjoy the process, really good things happen, or at least the chance of really good things happen. It's not to say if you enjoy the process, you're automatically going to make the Olympic team, or you're automatically going to make your trials cut, or you're automatically going to win sectionals, or you're automatically going to win your state championship. But at least you give yourself the opportunity to make that happen. If you're in a good mental space, you're really behind the 8 ball, and it's really hard to catch up to that. I really do believe that I may have been in really good physical shape at trials, but when your mind is saying, I don't know if you could do this, it's pretty much not going to happen. So I really learned from that meet really quick.
Those that break records in prelims, that strength is called ye old spirit crusher. Right? It's you demoralize everyone from start, and it sets the tone. And people do that. I did it twice in finals, and it's if you want to put out of state, but a couple of really interesting things that you said, which I think resonates with a lot of people, is you weren't the hardest worker. You didn't like to lead the lane. Funny enough, I know more people like that are still swimming beyond their prime. They're still enjoying the sport than the ones that were grinding day in and day out. As soon as they stop swimming, they are nowhere to be found ever again. And I think because you didn't push yourself as hard, it extended your career and your love for the game even to this day. My question is this to you. I like to ask a lot of people like yourself, if you could write a letter to your younger self about what it is that you know today, what would you say? And before you answer that, do you think that if you had worked harder, or if you could travel back in time and tell your younger self, Jeff, I'm older you, if you do work a little harder, I can tell you that it's going to pay off, and that you may fare a little bit better at the Olympic trials. Now, if you could kind of go back in time and tell yourself a couple of pieces of wisdom, do you think that you might have done anything differently?
Yes, absolutely. Everybody could say that in their lives. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in their lives who looks back in their 40s and says, there is nothing I would tell my younger self, because everything turned out perfectly. I mean, everybody has that little inkling in the back of their minds of what if. I mean, I know you've had
I can see Aaron Pierce. He seems to have done it all right.
He has. Maybe Aaron Pearsall. You're right. He's the only person who probably never has to look back in his life and say, I did nothing wrong. He's really done a lot of things right.
I don't want to get in the pool today. That's a trade-off.
But if I could go back, I guess I'd go back to my first day as a freshman at the University of Texas and tell myself to have fun. Don't worry about what other people think of you. And whatever happens, happens. And I think those 3 things, I didn't take those into account because I was worried about how my new teammates would look at me. I was worried about, I had a full scholarship to Texas. So I basically felt like I owed the university to be the best student and the best athlete that I could be. And it felt like, you know, they were paying me to do this job, and it felt like work from the first day. And I had a lot of pressure put on me, not just by external forces, but also myself. And it all just kind of compiled to that one day at Olympic trials, the most important day of my swimming career at that point. And I felt like I was pulling 300 pounds of myself through the water, because I had all this pressure on me. And, you know, I wouldn't tell myself, okay, you go there and don't worry about Jenny Thompson breaking the world record. I mean, that's immaterial. It would just be enjoy the process more. And my junior and senior year of college, I really just did not enjoy the process. I was kind of at the point of, maybe not literally, let's get through this and graduate from school and get on to the next chapter of my life, but it was just, I'm just here to get my degree. I'm going to do the best I can for my team. And that's it. I was kind of like a robot. And there are a lot of things that were going on with that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I just really want to tell myself, I don't want to say that I have one particular race that I would go back and tell myself, you know, there was one race, 93 nationals. I got fourth place. If I had gotten third, I would have gotten to go to the Pan Pacs. And I still beat myself up about if I had not glided into the wall. And I wouldn't go back to my 19-year-old self and say, take that extra stroke, you know, whatever. I just really wish I could go back and say, enjoy that process and have fun with the sport, so that I have better memories. And I have good memories. I have really good memories of my time from my teens and 20s. But there are a lot of times that I don't feel I could really capture, because I probably just didn't store them away. They were just things that happened to me and around me, and they just were like wisps of smoke that just kind of disappeared afterward.
Yeah, you know, like you in talking to you earlier, and again, for those of you listening and don't know, you know, Jeff wrote a book. He wrote, you know, he's got a book out there, and you know, I mean, who writes a book unless you've got something to tell the world? And you know, and obviously, you know, you've just as an athlete, you know, again, we don't want to focus on you know, on people winning medals in the Olympics. You know, your path was very similar to the ones that our athletes, our teenagers are going through today. And could you tell us, you know, a little bit about, you know, why you decided to write a book, and how your experience was unique, and you know, you obviously on your cover, you know, you have in writing, you know, the experience of being an openly gay swimmer. At least not then. Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like to feel different, but not be able to just tell the world?
Well, it's weird, Milo, because I didn't feel any pressure really about stepping on the deck and being a black swimmer. It was fine. Nobody made me feel weird about it. But I was devastatingly crippled by the thought of what would happen if people knew that I was also gay. Because we're in a sport that, like it or not, and believe it or not, you know, it's not extremely welcoming, and wasn't extremely welcoming in that regard. And to this day, it still dumbfounds me. But you know, swimming's not a very macho, not as macho a sport as like football or basketball or things like that. I mean, it just seemed weird that I felt that it was a sport where if I came out as gay, I would be ostracized, hated, and nobody would ever want to speak to me again. At least that's what was going on in my head. If I had actually come out to somebody, it would have been a totally different response. But from the time, I mean, I knew I was gay from 10 years old. And I mean, what that really meant, maybe I didn't fully understand, but you know, I knew that there was something different about me. I mean, I had an older brother. He had a lot of girlfriends. But, you know, so I knew kind of the concept of dating and physical attraction from a very young age. But it was like, yeah, if I were to date, I wouldn't probably date my best female friend. I'd want to probably date my best male friend. And as I got older, I started to really understand that. And I was totally fine with it. I never said, well, this is wrong. This is a sin. I've got to just expel this from myself. I told myself, and I knew that it was okay. It was just who I was. But I felt from certain members of my family, and I went to a Catholic school, so I was kind of almost told directly that being gay is a sin. So even though I was okay with it myself, I felt that the people around me would just not be okay with it. So I can't hide being Black, but I can hide being gay. So I'll just do that. And nobody needs to worry about it. And I think subconsciously, that's what made me want to be a better swimmer. Because if it really ever came out that I was gay, well, at least I was a good swimmer. And nobody could really take that away from me. And nobody could really, you know, if they wanted me on their team, then if they didn't want me on their team, they'd lose a really good swimmer. I mean, at least I wanted to put some value on myself to the team. And when I got to college, you know, when you're in the prime of your life, you're in your late teens, early 20s, and you know, you go out with your friends and you go to clubs, you go to parties, and you know, everybody's trying to, and I had people trying to set me up with females, especially in my freshman year. And, you know, I didn't want to say I'm not interested because I'm gay. It was just, I'd make some excuse, or it just kind of played off as just innocent flirtation. And every time I did that, it hurt me. It really hurt me internally, because I knew I was lying about it. And I didn't like lying about myself, because I always knew from a very young age that you had to be true to yourself, and you had to be honest about yourself. Don't let anybody else tell you who to be. And I was telling other people that I was this different person. And I guess maybe I was also just trying to tell myself, maybe I'm just an asexual being. Maybe I'll just not have any kind of dealings with the sexual part of myself for a long time. And I was willing to do that, but you know, you just get to this point where you just don't want to, because it's a part of your life that is being hidden from your family. I mean, Neil, you know, other people know, when you go to college, your college team is your family. It is your second family, and in some cases, it may be a stronger bond than your actual family. And you're very close with the people on your team for 4 or 5 years, and there were points where I would, you know, go out. I had gay friends in Austin, but they didn't know. They knew I was a swimmer, but I never introduced them to my swimmer friends, and vice versa. So I had this double life. And my junior year, I lived in a house with 4 other of my teammates, and I would want to go out with my gay friends, and my roommates would ask, "Where am I going?" It's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go out. I'm just going out." I just would stop there, just say, "I'm going out."
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. And I actually eventually did come out to 2 members of my swim team, because I actually was physically attracted to them. And I just was like, if I tell them, whether they reciprocate or not, I'm just going to tell them. And they were really wonderful people who, you know, didn't try to, you know, make it salacious or anything. They didn't decide to like tell on me. They didn't spill the beans to the rest of the team. They said it was my decision. But I really felt like it affected my swimming, because again, I felt every day I was in the pool, I'm pulling along 300 pounds. I mean, I was 200 pounds, but I also got all this weight of all that on me. Of what if there was somebody on this team who I may consider my best friend? What would he say if I told him I was gay? And just to kind of highlight that, every once in a while, we would sit in our locker room and we would have team meetings that didn't involve the coaches. You know, we talk about stuff. You know, we talk about team goals. Okay, we got a meeting in Stanford coming up. We're gonna, you know, let's work hard because we got to beat Stanford. Or, you know, let's try to reduce the partying, or this or that. You know, grade levels. Let's get our GPAs up. Or just talk about stuff without the coaches around. And you know, there were times where we'd just be like, okay, does anybody have anything to say? And I'd be sitting there And literally, like, my feet would be wanting to stand up and make some big announcement, but the rest of me was glued to the bench. I didn't want to get up. I said, I just say it. What do I have to lose? If they don't like me, if they want me to leave, I'll go to another school. And if they do like me, great. And this will be a weight off my shoulders. But I just couldn't do it for 3 years, sophomore, junior, senior. I just could not do it. And at the end of every meeting, I really felt deflated because I felt I was letting myself down. And it turns out, I'm going to go fast forward about 10 years, actually a little bit less. 1999, I was a master swimmer in Colorado, and one of my former college teammates was also swimming at the meet. And I was actually representing a gay swim team in Denver. And he would know that because it was, you know, he knew the swim team. And we started talking. We hadn't seen each other in about 5 years. I started talking, yada, yada, yada. And he asked about what I'm doing. I said, yeah, I'm swimming. And, you know, I've been just swimming with this team. And he told me, he said, yeah, it's a gay swim team, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And he's like, good for you. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you know, he said, Jeff, we all knew back in college. And, you know, it's good for you. You know, we didn't want to pressure you to say anything. We didn't pressure you to want to come out, but it's good that you're finally able to live that part of your life. And I felt like the bottom just dropped out for me. It's like him saying that was like, why did you say that years ago? If you knew, somebody just tell me. But of course you don't want to do that. I mean, nobody who's trying to figure out when the best time is to come out doesn't want somebody to come to them and say, look, we know you're gay. You can go ahead and say something. I mean, you have to do it on your own terms.
Yeah.
But it was, I think part of me, it would have been refreshing to at least have a feeling that there was that sense of acceptance if I had decided to want to come out in college. But if you go back to that question you asked Milo about if I could write a letter to my younger self, if I go back to 18 years old and say, stand up in that meeting and say, guys, there's something I have to tell you. I'm gay. You know, if you don't like it, let me know. If you do like it, whatever. I don't want to hide this from you. You guys are my best friends. I just gotta tell you. I really wish I had done that, and for better or for worse, because I really do think it affected my swimming. I just had so much pressure on myself to just be a swimmer and not a person. And you can't have fun when you're trying to live two separate lives, or you're trying to hide one part of yourself from people who, as I found out, already knew. So it was just it was hurtful for me for those 3 years of college. But it was very liberating when my teammate told me, is like, he knew, and, you know, thank you, and you're able to live your life now. And
I mean, man, you characterize your team as your family, and, you know, and even with your family, if you don't tell your family member, you know, if you don't tell your family member something, you still feel like it's a lie because you're hiding that something. And, you know, I think when somebody says that, you know, your team or your friend or someone or your family is family, like that word family, it has a lot of depth to it. You know, with kids nowadays, you know, being out of the water for 6 weeks almost, there's a lot of sad people out there, and yeah, you know, they would say that, you know, they miss their friends, but, you know, like you said, like these teams, they're very, very family oriented. Like, you know, it's your teammates are your support group. You know, you share everything with them, and I can only imagine, you know, just the difficulty of not being upfront with your family.
right, and that's true even for my age group team. I know my age group team would have totally supported it. I talked to my age group coach quite often, and, you know, I came out to him right after that when I was 25, and he was like, duh, yeah. And so it's like everybody knew, but nobody really, at least if they had just insinuated that if I had something to say, you could say it and feel comfortable saying it. And I know you probably do this very well, Milo, and I know a lot of swim coaches do this very well nowadays, is they create that environment of openness where people can talk about anything. It doesn't have to be, you know, a swimmer coming up to a coach and saying, I'm gay. It could just be, coach, I feel my mind is not in the right place, or I'm feeling low, or, you know, I feel like I just don't feel like I belong, or something's not right with me. I feel out of place sometimes. Everybody talks about these things and it's not me. And if they don't want to talk to their friends, they at least to have someone and a place to talk. And that was true 30 years ago. I was never told. It was never really insinuated. And I think that's the one thing that I'm glad is not true now. I've heard from a lot of people who they came out as teenagers because they knew they could talk to their coach, or they could talk to a friend before they came out to their family members, or their family members were very supportive. And, you know, coming out to your actual family is probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's, at least if you have that support, it's really encouraging. It doesn't mean that if someone had come to me at 17 and said, you know, I know that, you know, if you just want to talk about something, talk. I wouldn't have said right then, oh, I'm gay. Thank you. That feels so much better. I mean, I may have a month from now been like, okay, I'm ready to talk. But just to know that that's there when everybody is ready. And I know there's probably a lot of kids on here who are probably feeling that same way. Again, it doesn't have to be I'm gay. It's just something else where you feel a little bit different from everyone else and you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It can be difficult. You look externally, you think there's somebody out there that may not like this. I put a lot of pressure on that. If that one person didn't like what I told them, I was worried about that one person more than I was worried about the 30 others who would be very supportive of it. And that could be very, very, very crushing.
You know, Jeff, I would like to leave the last 10 minutes of this hour for Q&A. But you know, one of the things that I told my athletes was if I could ever go back in time, you know, one of my greatest pieces of advice to myself would be to spend less time and energy caring about what others think. You know, there has never been a better time in human history to come out if that's who you are. And you know, again, I think I spent so much time and so many hours and tears worrying about what others who realistically don't care about me. I gave them too much time a day worrying about what they thought. If there's anybody out here, you know, listening that wants to ask a question, please type it out, and I'll call on you to unmute yourself and ask Jeff yourself. But yeah, you know, that's powerful, man. That is powerful.
I will say that's one of the reasons I decided to write a book, is because I knew that there was something about my life that I could share with others to try to keep what happened to me, not to say it was devastating, but keep what I went through in my life from happening to others. So it was kind of a cautionary tale. And I didn't write the book to try to sell 1 million copies. If it touched one person, it touched one person. But it's really touched a lot of people, and I've actually had some people write to me and say, you know, my son, I gave my son your book, and because I had a feeling he was struggling with his sexual orientation, and 2 days after he read the book, he said, "Thanks, Mom. I feel better to tell you that I'm gay." And you know, that made me feel very good. And that kid he's actually still swimming. He's going to be a college freshman this fall. I've been keeping up with him, and I'm so happy that he's still swimming, because I think he might have gotten to the point where he would have gotten through high school and was like, I'm done with swimming. I don't want to be this closeted gay swimmer. But now he's very open about it. His college team is very open about it. They know, they're very accepting and very welcoming, and he's really looking forward to being there. So I've heard many stories like that, and I know that everybody has a little bit different reaction when they read the book, but it's all been extremely positive in many different ways. So that was about a year and a half of my life of writing that book, with a lot of encouragement, because I really thought, you know, Nobody would want to read my book. I didn't go to the Olympics. I didn't, win a national title. I didn't really do anything of any significance, at least in terms of what people think of as being an important person. But I've really heard otherwise, and it's been
I have an idea, and again, if we don't get any questions, I think it's because people came here to listen to your story, and I'm sure there's quite a few jaws that just dropped, listening to you, because I think your message of being different, resonates to not only those that feel that they are different in the same way, but that they are different in other ways. It's okay to be different. It's important to. I think what's most important is that you're happy, and to be happy, you got to be yourself. To be yourself, be yourself. Don't. You and I spoke on the phone, and you talked about how much energy it required of you to try to be liked and try to be accepted. And and being yourself and being happy is just being you. We have a question from Taya. Taya, would you unlock yourself? Would you unmute yourself and ask whatever it is you got?
What is your favorite part about your swimming career and why?
Oh boy, my favorite part about my swimming career. Well, if you're probably asking like what's the best moment, my favorite part about my swimming career was really being able to represent the United States at the international level. It's unlike anything ever, anything. I mean, it's really an amazing experience to go to another country, and I didn't wear a swim cap, but to have a shirt that says USA Swimming on it, to wear a jacket that says USA Swimming on it, and walk around the deck, and instantly that there's a lot of people that look up to you from other countries. I got to go to the Pan American Games, as we said, and we were the first Americans that were able to go to that country in 30 years. And it was a big moment for us, and we knew it. We were told by the president at the time. There was a video message before we got to Cuba about the importance of representing the United States in a good light. And it was humbling. But when we got to Cuba, every Cuban there just loved us. They loved Americans. They hadn't seen anybody from another country in 30 years. And the kids obviously had never seen anybody. So they just wanted to just get everything from us. We would give them our pens. We would give them, the last day, you get so many like clothes that I had so many clothes. It was like, what's one shirt? So at the last meet, the last day of the meet, there was this kid walking around trying to trade stuff. And I just gave him one of my shirts. And he looked at me, was like, really? This is like an Olympic gold medal to me. And I'll never forget that. He was, that was probably the best thing I've ever given away, with one of my shirts to this kid. And I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know it until maybe about 5 years ago. But as Milo had said, I'm the first African-American to win a medal in an international meet. And it's a big honor. And of course, people have done significantly better than that, with Simone Manuel and Anthony Irvin and Colin Jones winning gold medals at the Olympics. But it's been a great honor to have started building that path to where we are now. And I guess if that's really where the African-American international swimming experience began, I guess that's it. And I don't really think of winning a bronze medal as any big deal, but I'm proud to at least be on that list of African-American swimmers who have really done something in the sport. And I think that's why I like giving back in the way that I do, working with USA Swimming and hosting Deck Pass Live and being able to share with the world some of the up and coming swimmers that are racing the pool right now. It's just been really fun to see. And I do not take that lightly, that I'm still witnessing history. It's a lot of fun.
All of those athletes, Anthony Irvin, Simone, they all know you. They know you, right? And it's not your writing that they know about you. It's what you did for the sport. Hey, Coach Adrian, would you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
So I guess my question is, what do you think has helped you become such an accomplished master swimmer? Because you have national and world records. And so, I mean, that's got to be exciting, right? To not just keep swimming, but to be, you know, the fastest in the world at your age. And do you think part of it's just like the fun of it and it's all for you and all the pressure's gone? I mean, I know that's what made master swimming fun for me, is that it was, there was a shift. So I'm wondering if that was for you.
Yes, there is a major, major shift. And like I said, I wasn't having a lot of fun in my elite swimming career, but I'm having a blast right now. I'm really having a blast. And it's not just that swimming is for me, it's only for me. I mean, it could have been the same way. The way I approach swimming now should have been the way I approached swimming when I was younger. I go to every workout with the goal. I don't look at every workout as saying, I'm working to try to make the finals of NCAAs in the 100 breaststroke. I'm looking at each workout as like, today, well, my kick isn't very good, so I'm going to work on my kick today. And that makes it fun. It makes it fun when you break things down a little parts. Like I said, I'm not a good workout swimmer. I don't really enjoy it that much. So I take something and say, this is what I'm going to do today in the pool. Even if I don't accomplish me, even if I don't feel like my kick got any better, at least I worked on it. But of course, it's just the racing. I just really love the racing. The world records, they're a blast. It's so fun to have them. I broke my first one in 2003, and I think I've broken about maybe 3 dozen since. And they're just really, everyone is just as fun as the first one. They're just, it's to know that you're the best in history. And yes, it's on a master's level, but that's insignificant. I mean, my first world record that I broke had been held by the 200 IM Olympic champion from 1996. So that was like a huge deal for me, as I broke an Olympian's world record. But it really just the fun, and everybody around you, all master swimmers, we just have a blast, and that it's infectious.
At one time, I mean, at some point, you know, swimming, once you kind of pass that club level and past college, it's just a good time. You know, when I swim, it's mostly just a social thing. And you know, you said you didn't like to work very hard, but doing work with your friends kind of makes it easier. And I think that's what's kind of cool about swimming and just swimming in a team in general. When you're with other people that have similar goals, you know, you kind of get through it together.
Absolutely.
Okay. I wanna thank you, Jeff. You know, for everyone here for sharing, you know, a small piece of your story. You know, it's probably a big piece, but you know, I look forward to reading your book someday. Again, you know, being different doesn't necessarily need to mean, you know, you're gay. It could mean whatever else, whatever it means to the individual. But I do think that, you know, you're a pioneer for the sport. A lot of people are going to go on to do some great things because somebody in the beginning was there to start that ball rolling. So very, very cool stuff, sir. Thank you for being here with us. If we could ever help you out, or if you're ever in Seattle, let us know. We would love to have you come by and teach us a couple of things.
I'd love to. It would be my absolute pleasure. You guys stay safe, and when you get back in the pool, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be surreal. You're gonna feel like it's a new sport again. You're gonna love it.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, man. Have a good night. Good night, everyone.